Bordeaux a vu sa courbe démographique inversée depuis le début des années 90. Alors nous n'avions pas cessé de perdre.
That was about the 20th time I've listened to that. It gets better after a repetition, but you know, when you're in the assessment and you get one chance to listen to it, I don't have no clue what that guy was saying the first time. I still don't have a clue of what he's saying. All I heard, I get a couple of years, but I have no clue what he's talking about. I hear the word Bordeaux. You know, this is an assessment we just now took, and they want us to listen to this guy who's the mayor of Bordeaux back in '95 and tell us what he's saying. Tell him what he's saying, but I have no clue what that guy's talking about. So, if you had to choose, would you rather meet someone who could read and write but couldn't speak or understand anything you were saying? Or would you rather meet somebody who could speak and understand what you're saying but couldn't read and write? I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. You know? And that's the problem with the American system. That's all it's focused on, is reading and writing. The American system is made to get you through the American system. No real world application in anything you learn foreign language wise out of the American system. From day one in community college, they were teaching us they were preparing us to write papers. That's what they told us. We got to get you guys ready for university because they want you guys to write papers. And that's what we're doing. And that's what I can do. When it came down to the writing portion of this assessment, write a paper. I could write a 5-page paper in 2 hours. When it comes down to hearing and speaking, which is what students major. You major in the language because you want to speak it. I want to go and talk to people from another culture and get to know them in their language, in their native tongue. I don't want to go to somebody and write papers with them. I don't want to pen pal. So, you know, I came to the country thinking that since I was here, I'd be forced to learn how to speak French, or forced to speak French, but it's not necessarily the case. A lot of people like English here in Bordeaux. I don't know how it is in Paris. You know, a lot of stuff they teach us has to do with Parisians, but you know, in Bordeaux, the people that I meet, you're American? I want to speak English. I need to practice my English. You know, why do you want to speak English? Because you have to speak English. That's their answers. That's the answer they give me. And they like the way it sounds. Like, it sounds real dull to me. English sounds whack to me, but people here, they like the way it sounds. And it's funny because they speak English, which is a foreign language to them, better than Americans speak foreign languages. I mean, obviously because they're forced to use it more than an American would be than an American who's learning something like German or French or Russian or something like that has to use. You know, somebody who's learning Spanish, of course, in California, you wouldn't have any problem. But learning a language, a lot of these people know English, and all they did was learn English at school. But again, like I said, you know, English is the most widely used language, you know, in the world. So, and no, it's not Mandarin. 1.3 or 4 billion people speak Mandarin, but you know, even in China, you have to learn English in school. You know, English is the most widely used language in the world. Like, one of the things that I wish there would have been a focus on in community college and at Berkeley right now is vocabulary. You know, if you don't know the vocabulary in a specific realm of topic, then you can't keep up with the conversation. So if you talk about film and you don't know the words producer and director and actor and screenwriter, then you're not going to keep up with what's going on. And You know, the vocabulary that we learn is minimal. For the most part, we're learning grammar. We're learning how to write. We're learning how to conjugate verbs. That's what they teach us. You know, and that really fucks you up in real life situations, because when you're out there trying to figure out what tense of a verb to use, like the French, not to generalize the French, I hate generalizations, but the ones that I've came across, they get tired of waiting on you to figure out what you want to say. And the problem why we're trying to figure out what to say is because we're trying to conjugate a verb correctly. You know, we're like, do we use l'imparfait or passé composé? You know, because they give you these unnatural ways of learning how to do these verb conjugations in school. And so you come out and you apply those in real life. You don't think like that in, you know, in a real conversation. That's how you think before you write a paper or do one of those bullshit exercises that don't help you in real life, in the real situation. Now, I learned way more in community college than I am at Berkeley. You know, they spoke it in English. It's like you're first learning it, so yeah, we're just going to tell you what it means in English. It makes more sense. But in Berkeley, it's all in French. I understand what they're getting at. They want to immerse you into the language, but if nobody knows what you're saying for the whole 4 months, then it doesn't amount to anything. You know, you've been learning a language for 2 years and you want us to write a 5-page paper. I mean, what 2-year-old child do you know writes 5-page papers? 2-year-olds can barely verbalize. I'm a 2-year-old in French. I can barely verbalize. You know, I can't understand what you're saying. You know, if anything, from the beginning, when you're learning a foreign language, they need to send you to the country, first of all. Any prestigious school who's offering these programs, they need to send their foreign language students to the country. If that's not possible, you need to have more of an emphasis on listening and speaking. They got, you know, 1 or 2 classes to take for speaking. But everything else is just reading and writing. You know, 100 classes on reading and writing. And off the top, like if they gave me some audio like this on my first day of school with the transcript that I could go home and read along with him speaking and look up vocabulary, I would be so far well off right now. Hearing people talk, transcripts and audio. They had us, I took a class, the French 35 class at Berkeley. They had us listening to stuff like this and telling us to say what the guy was saying, write down everything he's saying. When, you know, they got us listening to people like President Sarkozy and, you know, President Hollande, you know, politicians who are very sophisticated in their speech, very articulate, lawyers, you know, very philosophical, speaking complicated French, words we've never heard before, and they're telling us, write down what he's saying. Dude is speaking way too fast, and I have no clue of the vocabulary that he's using. How are you going to tell me to write down what he's saying? Same thing with the other exercise they gave us. You know, use the International Phonetic Alphabet to sound out this word and write it in that alphabet, write it in IPA. But nobody's ever taught me how to properly pronounce the word. Here's the word that you've never seen before. Nobody's ever pronounced it for you and told you the proper way of saying it. But write it down, the proper way of saying it. I took a speech class, a communications class back at Bowie to learn how to speak better English. And even in that class, they gave us a list of the words. The teacher said, this is how you say it. And she went through every single person in the class and told us to pronounce the word. You know, anesthetist. Every single person pronounced that word. And she made you go over and over again until you sounded it out right. You know, they didn't even do that in the foreign language class, the language that we don't even know, French 35 at Berkeley. They didn't say, here's the word, here's how to pronounce it. You know, keep on saying it until you get it while you're in class. They just said, here's the word, I know you don't know it. You never pronounced it before. Nobody's told you how to pronounce it, but pronounce it for us perfectly. What else? Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much it. Try to keep the video as short as I can. I'm at 10 minutes. The bottom line, we need more practice on listening, on hearing and speaking. We need more of that at the beginning instead of grammar and conjugation. Like, if you want to, you could just be quiet in a lot of these classes. All the classes that I've taken, I could have just sat in the back and not said anything and wrote the papers and got A's. So, 10% of your grade in participation, you raise your hand, je suis. I participated for the day, and nobody's going to get 100 in participation anyway, so it really doesn't matter. But, all the grammar that we're learning, the grammar is evil. Run away. Run. I ran. They actually had us learning grammar when we first got here. They got 2 weeks of assessment of more grammar. I skipped. I didn't go because I realized how much it was messing me up when I was going out and speaking with people in real life, trying to figure out which tense to use, trying to figure out, oh, this is how you formulate the conditional. You used the endings of the long parfait with the third person of the present indicative. That's how you can't think of all that while you're trying to talk. People get frustrated when you're sitting there and you can't just say what you want. You're like trying to figure out some verb conjugation. Run from the grammar. Run.